everyone. Welcome to Ask the Planman. I'm your host, Bruce Weinstein. I believe each and every one of us needs a plan in life, whether it's a financial plan, a game plan, a tax plan, an estate plan, retirement plan. What about a sales plan? Today, I'm talking with Joe Beck, founder of the Sales Activist. I keep getting caught up on that activist. Joe Beck, welcome to Ask the Planman. Tell me, how did you come up with the concept of the Sales Activist, and what does it actually do for us?
Sure, absolutely. So, we named our business, our coaching and consulting business, the Sales Activist, because we believe that every small business or entrepreneur needs somebody who is truly a passionate activist for sales inside their business. Somebody has to own it, be excited about it, drive it, and that's kind of where the name came from. So, what it does for people is it's really a reminder of how important it is to keep your eye on the sales generation inside your business. The revenue that you generate, the sales revenue that you generate for many small business owners is lifeblood. It's how their business is able to do other things. And, too many times people take their eye off the ball and that lifeblood is cut off or restricted. And it creates a lot of problems for a business owner. And it certainly can create changes to the plan if they're not paying close attention to it.
Part of my theme with the Plan Man is the necessity to plan whatever it is. So even if you're not an entrepreneur, there's always planning in life that we need. The undercurrent of the show is kind of geared to that entrepreneur, small business owner, or somebody looking to get into their own business. And so having you on here, I failed to mention you have over 34 years of experience in the sales world. We want to give my listener the opportunity to understand how important the sales process is, because what you find at the end of the day, anybody could be a business owner, right? But for most people who fail, it's because they don't know how to be a rainmaker. There's a difference of being a business owner and being a rainmaker. So the highly compensated people out there have mastered and figured out the way to be a rainmaker. So it doesn't matter what space you go into. It doesn't matter what business you're selling. It doesn't matter whether it's a pen or a water bottle or a car. If you can't be a rainmaker, you're not going to make any money and your business isn't going to succeed. So we wanted you here today to kind of talk through some of those steps, give people some takeaways that they could maybe implement or obviously seek out professional help as well. So let's break down some of maybe your core principles, if that's a fair way to label it, and kind of give people some of those nuggets of so what's, and what, as I said to you earlier, is, the WIFM. What's in it for them? Why do they want to listen to us today? What can they take away? And then maybe some pieces they can start to implement into their businesses.
Absolutely. So let's first start with the fact that everybody, no matter what your role is, whether you do own a business or not, or whether you're, an employee working for another business, we're all in some form of sales. We're either selling ourselves to the people we work with and for, to our clients. Maybe we are in a sales role and we sell constantly, or maybe we're an entrepreneur or small business owner and somebody else might sell in our business, but as the owner, we're still responsible for sales. So we're all in sales. So that's the first place to start. We're all in a consistent and constant effort to really do one thing in today's society, and that is to get people's attention, to engage them in a way that's going to help them. And I believe that for many, many years, people talk a lot about this concept of value-based selling or value-based services, things just based upon value. Well, the problem in today's world, Bruce, is value has become highly commoditized. You can now go online, you can go on your smartphone and find 2,000 people that do just about anything with just a few clicks, right? So I believe that you need to shift the focus from just being value-based to being impact-based, meaning whatever it is that you do, whatever you sell, whatever service you provide, you can't settle on just providing value. You have to make an impact. And that impact needs to help that person feel better about, who you are, what you're doing. And you're really trying to do one simple thing. You're trying to become their trusted advisor or resource, the person that they go to for those specific things. And, it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what you do, everything is based on those things. In today's world, especially, it is so noisy and crowded. We're all inundated with messaging, posts, social media. Standing out now is about resonating and engaging people and showing them how you can impact their lives. And that's what's most important about what we do. The sales activist is all about helping people to figure out ways of impacting the people that they serve in a way that makes it memorable and also helps them attain the objectives they have for themselves and their business.
So you're hitting the word there with the impact. And this is something I struggle with, and I'm sure other people struggle with, is, and I've spoken to other business coaches about it, is self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so for me, whether it's my diminished ego these days from when I was in my 20s, the hubris, my aging, whatever it is I'm doing this similar to you now, 36 years. And I'm constantly asked about, why would people work with me over somebody else? Right. And it's hard for me, and I'm sure hard for other people, to really turn the mirror on themselves and self-reflect. Well, why does Joe Beck do business with me? Well, I don't know. I need to ask Joe Beck. Like, Joe, why do you work with me? What is it that you found? So I want to put your word impact back in. So what I would struggle with if you put me on the spot and asked me some of those pieces is because I'm just not self-aware enough. I'm not in tune to, or maybe I just don't appreciate how much value and impact I really have on people until I hear from them. And so an exercise that I've instructed younger agents and I've been instructed to do myself is to go back to clients and say, could you tell me why? Could you tell me what? And get that and listen to it. And is that something like what would you suggest for whether it's a seasoned veteran or a newer person? What's the measuring stick? Like what would you define? Is there a metric to define impact? I don't know if I'm saying that the right way.
So the first thing you need to understand about impact is it's never ever about you. And the reason why that's so important is sometimes people get into an engagement, a conversation, a meeting, an appointment, they're working with a client or a prospect, and they spend all their time talking about how great they are and what they can do and all these other things, when really all that prospect really wants to do is talk about themselves. And your role needs to be somebody who takes them on a journey of guided discovery. And that's an important phrase, guided discovery, because it takes all the pressure off of you, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, whether you feel like you have blind spots or you have things that you don't do really well. If you make it all about the other person, it takes the pressure off. Impact is about what happens to them as a result of doing the work together. For example, in your space, you can say in your industry that a lot of what you do is highly commoditized because you have certain product sets, certain price ranges, certain offerings, coverages, things like that. And in theory, that's true. But how somebody steps out and really separates themselves from the pack is when they spend less time talking about that and more time engaging the prospect about what the prospect wants to accomplish. Mr. Prospect, if you have this plan in place and it protects you against this, how will you feel? If you put this investment or this financial strategy in place to get you to a certain goal or objective, let's say it's saving for a college education or saving for retirement, and you accomplish that, how would that make you feel? And what would you do when you get there? And let them talk, let them explore that. And impact is about an emotional connection to some situation that you help create with your prospect. Logic is where value is set. So the difference that I always tell people is when you're talking about value, that's usually where logic sets in, where here's the price, here are the terms, the conditions, all those things. That's very logical. And it's been proven time and time again that people buy on emotion, whether they admit it or not. Even the most engineering based mind will buy on emotion. Now, they'll move forward and validate their purchase using logic, but their actual purchase is made emotionally. So you have to connect to them on an emotional level. How do they feel? What would they do? Think about it this way. And this is an analogy I use all the time, Bruce. It's so, so true. One of the industries everybody's familiar with is the automobile industry, right? Everybody's bought a car or been through that experience. The very first thing that they want you to do with the car after you've oohed and awed it and looked at it on the lot is let's go for a ride. Let's get in the car. Let's feel it. Let's rev the engine. Let's steer. Let's turn the stereo on. Let's feel the leather on the seats. Let's smell the new car scent, right? That's all an emotional experience. It's not a logical experience, but that's what people remember when they go to make a purchase. And
it's take the puppy home.
Absolutely. Take the puppy home. Let us know. Try it out for a while. Let the kids fall in love with it. But it really comes down to that. Yeah. Impact is all about emotion. And what people miss out on many times, and this is for the small business owner especially, or those that are high achievers that are in different positions. If you spend your time getting the people you're working with to do 80% of the talking, I don't care who you are, you can be a rock star salesperson. You can be a rock star in sales, business development, and revenue generation. Because if you listen to what they're saying and you ask the right questions and you get them telling you what they want and how they want to feel, all you have to then do is say, let's build a plan together to get you there. Let's get you there. You've described it. It's so important to you. I feel it based upon how you've described it. I want to be the bridge that gets you there. And that's all selling is. The problem is in the world that we live in today, Bruce, is people do it backwards. They spend 80% of their time talking about how great they are, how their products are. And then that poor client is left with 20% to try to express what means something to them. It's usually not enough. And then the salesperson says, so what do you think? What do you think of this? You ready? Do you like this? Do you want to move forward with this? How about we try this? It's not enough of an emotional stance for that person to be in. And
well, back in the day, it was all about features and benefit, right? Yep. And we hear is telling's not selling. So me telling you about the features and benefits, and the car does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Well, telling me that's one thing. Driving it and experiencing 0 to 60 in 2. Like whoa! All of a sudden, like now you're feeling it. And so the shift, the paradigm has shifted throughout our careers from the feature and benefit conversation of this investment's going to do this or whatever. And as Joe's framing this for us here, folks, is that if you can attach the emotion, you're going to win time and time again in that process. Now, I find, I'm chatty Cathy. I like to talk. And so it is a struggle for me to be more engaging and questioning and impactful in my process and to catch myself from just telling, right? Talking about things. But I do find, to give myself, the credit is, I do ask the right questions. I frame things for them. I educate them. I may not get into the touchy-feely, well, how would you feel if, but more of, well, how bad do you want that, right? Or whatever the questions are. If you want to retire at 65, well, what are your non-negotiables, Joe? Let's talk about your non-negotiables. Let's talk about what you can control, what you can't control, and then which of these are non-negotiable. And so in my 30 plus years, I've always felt that I wear multiple hats, and one of them is psychologist, is dealing with people and their money and their planning. And oh, by the way, the two spouses have never had that conversation. They're on totally two different wavelengths. She has a different desire than he does, and they never really spelled it out. And now I'm bridging the gap in that conversation. So all of that is so imperative to master the conversational side of the process, whatever it is that you're doing. You need to be able to, again, I'm using all of our lingos. You got two of these and one of these. You got 2 ears and one mouth, so you need to listen more. You need to talk less. You need to be present and understand what is coming out of that person's mouth and be able to interpret and give it back to them. So, Joe, if I hear what you're saying is it's really more important for you to have financial stability, blah, 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 versus retire 2 years early. Yeah. Yeah. I'm willing to work longer if it gives me the stability I need. Okay, great. We can work with that. Right. So again, it's the same thing. I'm willing to spend X amount of money on my sales training if it gets me to this. Well, if I can help you get to this, is it worth your investing and the time training and paying your staff to go through that training? Right. So you're showing them you take them into the future, right? We're getting you to there if you do this. Is that fair?
Absolutely. That's exactly how we've arrived at this place in the society we're in, because the truly effective people understand that. They do need to remember that, but there's a constant struggle for attention, and there's this impatience that people naturally have. Like they want to get to what they do. They want to talk about themselves. I typically call it Generation Me. We're now living in this society where people take selfies. It's all about them. So when they have an opportunity to interact with people, a lot of times the conversation is all about them. And the problem with that is, you're never going to be able to move a prospect forward to help them accomplish what they want if all you talk about is what you want, or all you talk about is what you offer. And one of the things that I think is so important, and you mentioned psychologist, it's so true. Like if somebody was to break down what I really do with the sales activist, I'm like a sales psychologist is really what it boils down to. Yeah. But one of the things that's so important to recognize is for people to really want something, they have to go through various stages of acceptance. They have to first verbalize it or put it out to the universe, right? They have to first say, this is something I want to have happen, right? And then for them to be willing to do what's necessary to make it happen, there needs to be some communication about it. There needs to be some questions asked. How important is this? Is this more important than that? Are you willing to do what it takes? Are you willing to do this or that? Used an analogy. Are you willing to work an extra couple of years to get you that security? That's a great example. And then, and only then, after they've answered and explained that, yes, this is what we want, and yes, this is what we're willing to do, they now have manifested it in reality. They now have emotionally gone through the experience of saying, I could do this. I could have this. This could be mine. And somebody who is effectively trying to help that person execute on their plan, right, then only has to say, would you let me help you with that? Would you let me help you accomplish that? Would you give me the honor of being the one that helps you do that piece of whatever your plan is? And too many times people get caught up in the latest and greatest closing technique or this or that, not realizing that it's not about that. It is all about the conversation that person has with you, what they share, and how emotionally connected you can get them to those things. And it really comes down to just being a good communicator, asking good questions. And there is something that I call in every interaction, what I call the impact line. And it's a line that you cross when you are being very consultative and asking the right questions and getting them to talk and share what's important to them. The elite, the top producers, the game changers, the rainmakers, as you define them, which probably only makes up 10, maybe 15% of the population, just being straightforward, they play above what I call the impact line. They are always in that space. They are always resonating that with the people that they're speaking to. The average performers, the people that, for lack of a better way of putting it, are just kind of phoning it in and talking about themselves and not getting connected to people, they stay below the impact line. And studies have shown that the higher likelihood for success would happen during that emotional phase when they start to really resonate with what you're talking about with them. And that's why I talk about that line the way I do. It's just about getting that person to emotionally admit, this is something that means something to me. And then all you have to do to help them is to be there. My apologies. That's one of my daughters from overseas. So I didn't count on the overseas call coming in on social media. So my apologies for that.
That's all right. We thought we had everything turned off, folks. So we went through the checklist.
It came in on social media, and unfortunately, if I turn that volume up, I'm turning everything off.
So you hit on something. If I can, is you always have to have willing participants.
Yes.
You can't force somebody to go to therapy if they're not ready to talk, if they're not ready to open up, if they're not ready to be vulnerable. And so not everybody's going to be your best dance partner. And so when Joe and I talk about the conversation and getting people to open up, you'll hear the label pain points. Is you got to get people to realize and accept their pain in the process. And obviously how you got engaged with them, like, my days of cold calling are long gone, right? We work with referral partners. We do networking events, and we get more inbound traffic than anything else. I don't cold call. I have a phone book because you don't know what you're dealing with anymore. But when somebody's coming to me, in essence, on a referral basis, they've already identified some pain. They need something. They asked Joe Beck for something. They said, hey, I'm gagging on my health insurance costs. What are you guys doing? Well, we work with so-and-so and he can help, and maybe you should talk to them, right? So the pain's already been coming through. And so the whole part of the siphoning off your suspect to prospect, right, type of thing is we all have suspects. We kind of want to deal with prospects, and then we want to get them to become clients and advocates. And so I don't want to deal with suspects. I want to deal with prospects. And a prospect tends to be somebody who's already raised their hand. Now, we don't always do business with everybody that comes to us. I mean, nothing is a perfect science. But what Joe's bringing value in today is to understand the dynamics of having the conversation, getting to people's pain. If you haven't been referred in and you're dealing with somebody in a cold prospecting type of standpoint, is you got to ask some pain derivative type questions, because the only way you're going to keep that prospect on the phone or engaged is to start poking the pain. And once you have identified some of that pain, the questions Joe was using earlier, well, what if we could, or how would you feel if? And now you're turning that suspect into a prospect. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, would it make sense for us to talk further? Or should we have a deeper dive? Why don't we get something on the count? Whatever it is. And again, depending on everybody's different in their process and prospecting. But at its essence, what we're talking about, the underbelly of all of this, is consultative pain, listening. And then you ultimately will bring your goods and services, value, features, and benefits into the conversation at a more appropriate time, but you're not leading with it. You're not just drowning people in information that I'm real quick, and then I'll throw it back, is I'm a driver expressive or an expressive driver, depending on how you want to take those variety of personalities. So first and foremost, I'm not going to ask you for an appointment to discuss your business and helping me unless I already have some interest. Right? So I'm not here to waste people's time. So I know how I work. Now, the last thing I want is for you to send me to one of your webinars or YouTube videos for a demo. I don't have time for that. I have zero patience and interest for that. So anytime I raise my hand of a new CRM, a new software, a new technology, and I try and get a hold of them and they're like, well, watch our demo, I'm done. Like I'm not interested because they're not listening. I've got my pain. I want to talk about my pain. I have 3 basic questions, maybe more, maybe less. If you can answer my questions, right? Because I'm a driver. The driver just cuts to the chase. I don't want features and benefits for an hour. I got 3 bullet points. Hit me with the bullet points. I'm a good decision maker. I know if it's going to answer the problems that I have with my business. Is it something I'm willing to spend money on? Then yes, let's move forward, right? So you need to also understand in some of the sales processes, there's the 4 quadrants, as you will, and how you need to tailor your conversation and your questions to those personality types. You and I get stuck with an analytic. Well, they're going to want all the features and benefits. They're going to want to pull apart the remote control and ask you how the thing works. Bruce doesn't care how the remote control works. I want to hit this button and it's going to go on. And that's all I want to know. If there's a battery in there, it's going to work. True?
Yep.
Your experiences on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we have to go one step further. I think you hit the nail on the head as it relates to the pain side. But let's not forget the pleasurable side. Like, this is one of the areas, most times it's pain, but I'll tell you, depending upon the product or the service that somebody offers to help people accomplish what their plan looks like, sometimes the conversation is about pleasure. Let's say, for example, you provide a product or a service that saves them money or adds money to the bottom line, right? Well, all of a sudden you're having a pleasurable conversation. Like if you're able to add $250,000 to the bottom line of a business based upon what you do as a business, and then you're having a conversation with that prospect, and they say, well, what you're saying is this, and you say yes, and according to this, you would save $250,000. The conversation is a pleasurable one, and it's something that creates the opportunity for you to really engage with them on a higher impact level by just saying something as simple as, well, if I was to slide a check across your desk right now for $250,000, what would you do with the money? What would you do inside your business? What would you do personally? How would you develop your business? Would you create more from it? Let's let the dialogue go there. And part of the reason why that's so powerful, Bruce, and this goes to one of the really big topics that's out there in the world, is how do you sell high ticket? How do you sell much larger accounts? Well, if you want to go sell something that has $1 million price tag, go solve the $1 million problem, or go solve two $500,000 problems. Like, sure, it's not a hard equation, but people miss the piece of the communication. They miss that if you're going to go out there and you're going to help people to the tune of $250,000, for you to go out there and ask for more for your service, it now becomes something that's much easier. For example, if you have a service that's $50,000, or for those of you that charge $10,000 for a service and you wish you could charge $50,000, I'm going to explain this to you in a way that I know you're going to love. If you're having that same conversation with that person and your $10,000 product or service saves them $250,000, would you feel any guilt at all saying to them, the cost of my service is $50,000? And the answer is probably no, when this solution is a pleasurable experience of $250,000. So sometimes you have to explore, obviously, the pain based upon certain products and offerings, but then you also have to talk about, in situations, the pleasurable side, what the higher and greater value is, because in that higher and greater value is greater impact. The impact now is intensive. Like, and in a business environment, the impact usually means more people too. It means more people being helped, more people being served, more people being developed, hired. There's just so many more people that get involved, and that creates excitement for any small business.
Now, it's easy to quantify the monetary side. Obviously, people can say, well, if you show me and if there's guarantees or whatever. Now, I'm very easy and transparent, because if you're paying $2,000 for your health insurance and now it's $500, well, the savings is apparent. It's right in front of you, right?
Sure.
If I say, if on your side, if you implement this, it's going to make you 5 times your money. Well, there's always going to be some, I'm from Missouri, show me. But what I want to flip it to is in the sense of time.
Yeah.
Time is the most precious commodity we have. And so depending on what your business is out there, what you're doing for people in the sales world, what can you do to show people the expansion of time? How are we going to save you time with this? I'm big on automation. I'm big with technology. People say, hey, at this stage of your life and career, why are you so, or how did you get so involved in all this technology? Well, it's just Robin and I, and she does X and I do Y, and I need to leverage my time. I don't have a staff of 15 people to delegate. So I need as much automation and technology as possible. Well, what does that do for me? It frees up my time, right? Something as simple as the calendar systems we use gets me out of that chronic conversation of, Joe, I got Tuesday at 2 or Friday at 4, which is better for you? Oh, I'm not good that week. How about the following week? I got Thursday we're back and forth for 30 minutes engaging. And that's just the one person you're trying to get on the calendar. Well, you know what, Joe? Here's my calendar link, has full access to all my availability. Please find something that's convenient to your schedule and book whatever is needed. Done. Yeah. I got a million links and it's in everything that I have. That is a huge time saver. And so it wasn't price. It wasn't, it's the cheapest service you can get out there in the world of technology. It's under $150 a year. It's nothing. But the time that it saves me, it's 1,000x. It's a 10,000x, right? So what you're doing out there, depending on the space that our listener is in, what value that they're bringing, what they're trying to sell as their proposition to their clientele. Well, how much of it is on time? How much can you position the value of that time and what you're giving back to them? So it's not always the dollars are easy, right? You know what the payoff is if you do X. And so are you willing to believe in what you're being shown and execute to get that result by working with trained? I'm not a trained professional salesperson. I'm a professional salesperson, but I'm not a trainer. So what Joe does as the sales activist is he's a professional trainer in that sense, and he wants to help you and your business and the people within your business execute these things. And so it's a price and dollar sense of value, but it's also time. You have any other examples on the time side of?
Yeah, I think, one of the real life examples that I like to use too, everybody, no matter who you are, you have a determination of what your personal time is worth, right? And it's the whole reason that any business owner will hire somebody else to do something. It's not that they can't go do it themselves. They can, but they equate how much their time is worth and what it would cost them to do it. And I go back to the first time that I hired somebody to cut my grass, right? I like to use real life analogies, Bruce, and everything that I do. The first time that I hired somebody to cut my grass, at the time I was commuting a lot between Pennsylvania and Ohio. I was on the road constantly. And I got tired of pulling in my driveway Friday night late after a long week and seeing my grass being high. And, then I had to spend the half a day, one of the days of the weekend, cutting my grass because I was going to be on the road again the next week. So that time to me was precious because that was time that I could potentially be with family, my children, friends. Right. So I decided, you know what? It goes against who I am personally. I'd rather do it myself. I enjoy cutting grass, but it's much more valuable to me to spend my time doing those other things. So I'm going to pay somebody to cut my grass. And the first time I pulled in my driveway and I saw that my grass was cut, and this was late at night, I pulled in and the grass was cut off the beams of the headlights. I could see the grass cut. I couldn't tell you the sense of great satisfaction and happiness knowing that I paid that person to do it, because my value for that time was just so much more. And it doesn't matter what you use as the analogy. When you're able to get something back that is so significantly more than what you have to give to make it happen, there's significant value there. And, in the greater scope of those things, the more value created, the more potential impact and the more emotion involved. It's all a matter of degree, and everybody's got their own things that they like to do versus things they have to do. And the more you find people to do the things that you have to do, but you don't like doing, the more you're freed up for a higher and valuable use of your time. Sales is one example of that, but you can take that across life in general. It's just something that it makes you happier ultimately. There's no doubt about it.
You're making me smile because I'm reflecting back. So as a teenager, I spent many a days, shoveling snow in the snowstorms, but taking my bike and pulling behind me the lawnmower. And I had a lawn mowing business in my teenage years. That's one before I had a license and I could drive and do things.
Our generation did that, Bruce.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, paper route to snow shoveling, to cutting grass. And so coming from that beginnings, I vowed when I owned a home, I'm never cutting my grass. So I can appreciate that transition for you to basically say, look, it's not something I want to do anymore. But it back to the time,
Yeah.
we constantly hear that what's a high value time versus a low value
Sure.
time. And so when the very basic exercise I learned early on, in my career was, if it's a $15 an hour task, then hire somebody for $15 an hour to do it. You need to define what your hourly rate is, whether you're making it or you want to make it. If I want to make $1 million a year, what does that break down to hourly? And am I doing the activities that are going to pay me that hourly rate, which is prospecting, being in front of clients. It's not sending out birthday cards. It's not doing mailers. It's not shuffling papers on your desk. It's things that you need to leverage your time. So if you need to hire an appointment setter and it's X amount, if ultimately mine and Joe's ultimate success of money comes from being in front of a prospect/client, well, then that's all that should be on my calendar. In theory, right? Now, how do you get in front of them and who puts the fanny in the seat? Well, then that's the sales process, the suspect to the prospect, to being in front of them, and then the conversions. But ultimately, you have to be able to have your pipeline built. And then if you can leverage the skill sets, go back. Let's bring it back for a second. If I own a company, am I the salesperson, the CEO, the shipper, and the receptionist? Or am I now compartmentalizing that I have somebody answering the phones, I have somebody handling the shipping, and then I start hiring salespeople so that I can run the company and the business, but then I have salespeople in place. Now, most entrepreneurs, most business owners are the salespeople. I mean, if they're any good, they're going to launch because they're out there grinding. And like, instead of me doing this for somebody else, I'm going to do it for myself. And now I got to go be the rainmaker. And then you start to expand into the other tools and services. So it's back to that time leverage, which ultimately will bring the money. True?
Yep. No doubt about it. And you hit the nail on the head. And, there's no getting around it, whether you're selling for somebody else or whether you're selling yourself in your own business. The two highest value activities that you're ever going to have in your business at that level are going to be prospecting and selling. They are things that are client facing, where you're engaging. Like, your money is made in engagement. It's not made in doing the mailers. It's not made in the lower value activities. It's not that those things don't need to be done. It just means that they're always things that you could have somebody else go do. And that way you're available to have more engagement time. And too many times people take everything on themselves because they either don't want to spend the money to have somebody else do it, thinking, well, I'll just save the money and I'll do it myself, not realizing they're stealing money from that productive time that they would have, gotten out of it if they were engaging somebody. So,
well, let me cut you off for a second. It's not that they don't want to spend the money; they may not have the money to spend.
That's true too.
So you gotta start there. And there's Damon John has a great book, The Power of Broke. And so if you haven't read that book, it's a quick read. It's a small book, but understanding the power of broke. If you are a new entrepreneur, new business owner, and you don't have the capital, the perspective there is you have to make decisions on how to deploy your capital.
Yeah. And
so, you and I might come in with a fat wallet and just throw money at things, hoping it's going to work without really knowing it's going to work. And that's part of what he talks about, is that's not necessarily the right answer. When you have the power of broke, you come up with creativity and ways of leveraging the money, leveraging the time, leveraging relationships without having to spend that money. And then to fast to your point, where you're at is, once you have the capital, then you have to decide, I've been involved in conversations where it's like, when I'm ready to hire somebody, do I hire an admin or do I hire a salesperson? Do I get another agent under me where I can make a percentage and pay them something and then get money back? Or do I hire more admin to expand and take some of that leverage off? And so, that could be a question for the ages. It's the horse or the cart, the egg or the chicken, which comes first? So your conversation there could be, well, if I have more salespeople, I'll start generating more revenue faster than an admin who's not generating any sales. And then they're just kind of taking those lower value activities away. Yeah. So again, it's just perspective and understanding And then I think you'd agree with this. One of the biggest challenges with successful entrepreneur, business-minded people is letting go of control. True? Like it just,
Very true.
I know I'm good at what I do. Finding somebody that's equally up to the task and work at my work ethic and my drive is the challenge. And then saying, you know what, I got to let Joe do this, and I've got to let him fail, and I've got to help correct him along the way, and I got to help him mold into what I hope he can become. So
and that's something that was highlighted in Michael Gerber's great book, The EMyth. Like, everybody thinks that, they're the best at doing something, and they may be, but for you to grow, to get out of your own way, you need to put it in the hands of other people sometimes. And when you do, they may only be 60% as effective, but that's okay, because that frees you up to do other things and you will grow. If you try to do it all yourself, it may be done a little better, but you won't be able to grow.
Yeah. I mean, any sales organization is in its core a multi-level marketing. I mean, any pharmaceutical companies, car companies, it's, that MLM gets a bad word or reputation, but any sales organization has somebody at the top, whether it's ownership or corporate, and then you have VPs of sales, and then you have, somebody has to be the grunt that's actually doing the sales.
Yep.
The problem with the MLMs is everybody's just recruiting people, but nobody's actually selling. And that's where they kind of, they run aground sometimes. So at the end of the day, somebody has to be able to sell up that everybody can make their money. So we all have to do our roles in there. I digress. I don't mean to get into that. So any other thoughts? I want to recap some things we said, but is there anything else that you had in your mind you wanted to share?
I think we covered a lot of great ground. I think, you hit the nail on some of the really important things. I think for everybody listening, I can't encourage you enough to want to really engage people to create an impact. Don't just settle for value. And, if I can help you in that process, please let me know, because I believe that creating more impact in the world is going to help more and more people get what they really need in this world. And I think that's going to separate you from the average people out there.
So let me summarize some of what we said here. Let's make sure people captured their so what for today's episode of Ask the Planman with what Joe shared with us is the difference of being an impact and making that emotional connection, and that eventually letting the logic complete the transaction that you're dealing with here. But if you're not connecting emotionally, you're not getting into the pain. And I picked up a great word here on the other side. So thank you for that. Is the pleasure, is focusing on the pleasure of the accomplishment. Again, I'm probably doing it, but never was cognizant of that. So you focus on the pain so much, but you don't realize once the pain, I never knew I was in so much pain or discomfort till I got a massage, because I went in for my one shoulder and all of a sudden it's this back, it's that knee. It's like, the massage therapist is finding things I never knew was even pain, and what a pleasure it was to finally get that release, right? So that was very impactful information for me, is understanding the other side of that. And then Joe referenced the impact line of being above in the consultative side. Telling is not selling, as I used earlier. Did I miss anything else on? I can't even read my own handwriting here.
No, I think you've hit you've highlighted the big ones.
All right. So, Joe, how can people reach you? We're going to put it in the show notes, but why don't you share some of your contact info for the listener driving, and then certainly check back when it's safe, folks, and check the show notes. So how can we get a hold of Joe Beck?
Yeah, absolutely. You could find us on our website at thesalesactivist.com. And you can also connect with me personally via my digital assistant, just by texting the word sales to the number 409-509-7355. My digital assistant will start asking you questions, and we'll figure out how to best help you and, help develop your sales plan for yourself and your business and help you take it to the next level.
All right. So you don't have to talk offline about digital assistant, because we both have digital business cards, but I don't have a digital assistant. So I like that. We're going to have to fill me in on that one. And then we'll bring that to our listeners later. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Again, my name is Bruce Weinstein. You've been listening to another episode of Ask the Planman. When you need some advice, always get it right. Please come ask the Planman. We'd love to hear from you. Give me a call at 1-844-PLANMAN. Check us out on our YouTube channel, planman.tv. My website, asktheplanman.com. I even got a toll-free number. I'll pay to hear from you. Did I say that already? 844-PLAN-MAN. Anyway, you just look for Ask the Planman websites, YouTube, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn. We're everywhere and anywhere, as is Joe Beck. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you every time. Hopefully our listeners have a few bullet points to take away for today. And if not, you need to speak to Joe further. Find him at the Sales Activist. My goodness, I can't get that. Joe, thanks again for being with us. Stay well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bruce.
When you need some advice, never sacrifice.